attributes a loyalty. Now, does loyalty needs a lot of explanation? If we need or if we expect loyalty from our subordinates or from our colleagues, do we give loyalty to them? We need to be fair. The loyalty is two-way thing. If you expect loyalty, you must give loyalty. Be loyal to your people. Be compassionate. Understand their problems. And now we look at the most talked about, and most of you are aware with that, the management of men and material. About management of material, I think all of you would know better than me. I can only say that when you are managing your materials, look at your cash flows and not P&Ls. Management of men is a very important thing. Men in number can be very nasty. If they are on strikes or if they are indulging in riots, they need to be dealt sternly. There's no point saying namaste or jai hind to them. But men have their problem. A leader shall be able to sort out those problems. They have a problem of death, they have a problem of debt, they have a problem of sickness, they have a problem of children education. They get despondent very quickly. So leaders should be able to address their despondency and help them solve their problem to have them loyally with you. After reading or after looking at this COVID aftermaths, I've introduced a new attribute to my definition of leadership, which is resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from the adversity to endure hardship. It has emerged as a most important trait in the leaders steering organizations. Uncertainty during last couple of months brought on by coronavirus and subsequent lockdown has resulted in a deep introspection among business leaders. The kind of resilience you need today as a leader is different from what you needed pre-coronavirus. In pre-coronavirus era, leaders were chosen based on set of traits like ethics, courage, experience, foresightedness, knowledge, competence. But post-COVID era, resilience will stand out as a key trait, as that will help leaders not only just cope up, but transform. The resilient leaders and the organization led by them recover more quickly from the crisis and learn from disruptions. Gentlemen, one thing which is very, very important for the leaders, and we lack that very badly in India, is a discipline and character. What is discipline? Discipline is a code of conduct of a decent living in the society. You have learned that from your father, from your mother. It's there in all books. Guru Nanak's teachings or Bible or Gita or Quran. Everybody talk about discipline. Non-punctuality is an act of indiscipline. If somebody is non-punctual, he is very, very indisciplined, and his indiscipline causes a lot of harm to the organizations or to the society. I've seen people who are leaders, how strictly they take discipline into consideration. Again, I give you an example of my chairman, Oman. He had invited chairman of Siemens, which is one of the largest companies in the world, for a meeting to do a project in Oman. And the gentleman turned up half an hour late. My chairman did not see him. And when I asked him, what are you doing? He says, a person who cannot come for a meeting in time, he can never deliver a project in time. So gentlemen, he lost probably $1 billion+ project for his act of indiscipline. And that happens every day. I can give you my personal example. I was new to Oman and I met a couple of friends for a dinner. And I was very clear stating the time of coming and time at which dinner was served. One of our friends turned up half an hour later than the time of dinner being served. And he had the courage of coming and saying, "Can I have a drink before I have my dinner?" Maybe I was rude, but I had to tell him, "My friend, the bar is closed and people are having dinner." And what was the consequence of that? Thereafter, generally people will turn up in time when I invite them. So this is what I compile of a leadership. So leaders cannot be serious all the time. They also need to have a bit of free time or me time. And if you have looked at the life of leaders in the world, you know most of them are a bit of man, bit of lad. You all must have read about Julius Caesar. He was a great leader, but when he used to come back to Rome, the senators used to lock their wives. You have read about Napoleon. He had Josephines and Marriott and so many good looking girls in his backyard. But you will agree with me that he was a great leader. The Duke of Wellington, night before the War of Waterloo, there were more women of luscious natures in his chamber than the army officers or staff officers. In India, you know our first Prime Minister. And I don't say, it's a Priyadarshini Sen who wrote, there were two pleasures Nehru could not resist: the vitality of mountains and the company of an interesting woman. And we all know about his fondness for the Edwina Mountbatten, the wife of Lord Mountbatten, and his fondness of all intelligent and good-looking women. Ladies and gentlemen, having spoken about the qualities or attributes of the leadership, let me share with you few fundamental principles of leadership. Do not sweat about the small stuff. Do not waste your energy on small issues. Concentrate yourself on the major issues. Keep your goals set for the mission. And you should always remember, you win or lose as a team, not as an individual. Now let me give you an example about this. I don't know, some of you must have read about Captain Raghu Raman, who was an army officer, and then he set up few startups, then he joined government, and right now I think he's working with Reliance. And Raghu Raman, if you are listening or if you get to listen this later, excuse me for using your name. He joined Indian Military Academy, being fresh graduate from one of Delhi's colleges. And normally in Indian Military Academy, you have other cadets who come from NDAs or military schools or sailing schools. So the very first week of his course, he was in a class and an instructor came and asked, "Gentlemen, do you have any issue? You are new to the academy." And Raghu Raman, probably with his background of a leaders or union leaders, raised his hand. "Yes, sir, I have a problem." Or "We have a problem." And the instructor asked, "What is the problem?" He says, "Sir, our seniors eat all the biscuits of a morning tea before we reach the mess. They are supposed to take only 2 biscuits, but they ate 4 or 5 and nothing is left for us." The instructor said, "Okay, we'll fix it." He thought he has done a great thing. That evening, probably just after the dinner, the instructor, same instructor, in his track suit and on his bullet, came to the residential area. He didn't come to the first termers, where Raghu Raman was. He didn't come to the second termers. He went straight to the third termers. By the way, in Indian Military Academy, you have 3 terms. The third termers are treated like kings, or they treat themselves like a king. The second termers treat them like a princess. And the third termers are fresh, they are even treated much below human beings. So he asked the third termers to fall out. Fall out in military language means come out of your residential area and stand in a line. And he gave them all sort of punishment. Front roll and back roll and frog jump and crawling and whatnot. For 2 hours till their elbows and knees were bleeding. And then he didn't say anything. He left. Now third termers came to the second termers. And they did same thing with them. And then second termers with the first termers where Raghu Raman was. So by the time first timers finished their punishment, it was already 4:35. They could barely shit, shave and shampoo and go to the PT again. And second day again in the class, the same instructor came and asked, any problem, gentlemen? None, sir. So we learn two things from this. When you are designed to do big things in life, don't crib about small things. You cannot be cribbing about biscuit when you are being trained to fight wars, when you are trained to live in difficult conditions. And second thing you learn is you are punished or you are rewarded as a full team even for the mistake of one individual. And this is so true in the corporate world. One wrong person in the organization can spoil the whole chain of thoughts or movements. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to be good in everything, but be best in at least one thing, and glory is all yours. Again, I give you example of Captain Raghuraman. When he was about to pass out from the Indian Military Academy, he was ranked 313 or 14 out of 350 people. Needs a lot of hard work. And he was reasonably good at sports. And at that time, a new battalion was being raised in the army. And CEO of that battalion had written to the commandant or principal of Indian Military Academy that please post me an officer who is good at sports, maybe low in ranking. So the commandant read that letter but remembered only the second line, low in ranking. And Mr. Raghuraman was posted to that unit. So he landed there and everyone was looking for a great sportsman. The moment he landed, very next day, a lot of people came to ask him, what sports you play, sir? What do you do? And he said, nothing, I play a bit of everything. And the word spread around, oh, the new officer is not only good at sports, but he's very humble. Couple of days later, there was a cross country, and Raghuraman had to run that cross country 16-kilometer race in tough terrain and in difficult conditions. So Raghuraman was among the last 2 or 3 people when the race was over. Everybody was probably having tea or cold drinks after finishing the race. And everybody looked at it, he was castigated, everybody looked down upon him, he was dejected, he didn't know what to do. Couple of days later, he was working in the unit and he saw his battalion practicing for the shooting. There was a shooting, inter-battalion shooting competition. And he went there and he asked Subedar Major, can I also shoot something? So he was given a revolver or a pistol fully loaded and Raghuraman shot, and to everybody's surprise, all his bullets hit the bullseye. Bullseye is the center of the target, which is around 2 centimeters in radius. And Subedar Major gave him the second revolver and the third revolver. And he shot all within that bullseye. And he immediately called the CEO. Sir, the new officer is excellent at shooting. You are going to win the shooting competition. Now, having seen what has happened earlier, CEO wouldn't believe it. He said, let me come. So he came there. He asked Raghuraman to shoot again. 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. And when he saw that, you know what was his statement? You are not the guy who needs to run, because you can shoot the enemy. So gentlemen and ladies, you need to be good at something, and that goodness can overtake a lot of your weaknesses. The next thing is you have to be always prepared to face the worst day or embrace the best opportunity. Opportunities do not knock at your door every day. You can't be lucky every day. So always be prepared, be ready with all wherewithal to embrace the opportunities. If any one of you is from the military background, especially army, and if you have ever visited any army unit, You know, when you go out of an army unit, at the gate, it's written, Aaj Mukabla Hoga. Means today is going to be the testing day. Therefore, be ready for any eventuality, any day, be it economic, financial, human resources, or anything else. The next thing I want to tell you is it's the teacher, it's the leader who wins or loses. You know, when you're training somebody or you have a team who are leading it, if you win as a leader, it's your victory. But if your team member wins, the teacher wins, the leader wins, right? Because you are the one who have trained them. So train your team well without reserving anything for yourself. Don't hold back when you're training somebody. Don't get fear that, oh, he might supersede me. If he wins, you win. You cannot be lucky always. Let that incident of bad luck not keep you demotivated for long. If you have not done well in one particular thing, or if your children are not doing well in school, don't worry. There may be something else meant for them which is better. Ladies and gentlemen, most of the times we don't choose our occupations. Our occupations choose us. Now, what is one thing which motivates everybody, be it a leader or be subordinate? Is it only the wealth? Is it only the position? At least I don't agree with that. If that was so, why would a battalion of officers or men who knows that they're going to die today would be ready and fully charged to go and fight? So there is something more than that. The sense of being recognized or treated as someone special. There's a single point of motivation for the leaders. Whether you do it in the organizations, whether you do it in your personal life, your only unhidden desire or hidden desire is that you should be treated as a special. Let me give you two short stories on this. Have you heard of commandos or special forces in the army? The insignia they wear on their arm has a dagger with the word Balidan written on that. And it's only around 3 or 4% of the people from some units get chance to join that special force. They are given a very rigorous training. They are like rapid fire. They know that if there's any threat or danger, they'll be the first one to go and fight. The chances of survival in that particular core competence is not more than 20 to 30% the life of individual. And still, everybody is dying to join that small elite group. Why? Because with that insignia on your arm, and they also get a red cap beret, with that on your head, you are given a very, very special treatment. If you walk into a mess or a club or stadium, the people will make place for you. Have you heard of Captain Sudhir Walia? He was a special force captain, trained commando, and in 2000 he was posted as a ADC to Chief of Army Staff in Delhi. Very quoted post, because all the senior officers and bureaucrats and government has to go through him when they want to meet Chief of Army Staff. And his battalion was ordered to go and participate in the Kargil War. This Captain Walia went to Chief of Army Staff and said, "Sir, I am feeling miserable sitting here. I want to be with my battalion." He resigned and stayed and joined the battalion. His battalion did a very, very important task. they took over a very important positions. I would not name them for sensitivity reasons. So he was great guy to lead that force. But he survived the Kargil. But soon thereafter, in a group of 8 people, he was asked to encounter a big contingent of terrorists. His small group killed 20 terrorists, 8 of them he personally killed, and he died in that combat. He was awarded Ashok Chakra posthumously. So gentlemen, look at his motivation. He was easily sitting in an air-conditioned office in Delhi in the most coveted positions, but the sense of being treated as somebody special took him from there to the war field, and he faced his death. There's another example of Lieutenant Vikram Batra. You might have read about him. He is one of the Param Veer Chakra winners. He was 24 years old when he was leading a small troop to acquire the highest peak in Kargil. He was badly wounded, but he succeeded. Everybody thought he's dead. The citation for Param Veer Chakra was already passed, but he survived. And you know, one General Malik, that time was Chief of Army Staff, called him to ask him, "How are you?" You know what was his answer? "Sir, dil mange more." He wanted to again fight, he didn't want to rest. And then he went on to encounter another battalion where he was killed. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a sense of being somebody special. Be through knowledge, be through achievement, be through your working style, be through your behavior, be through what you do. You must create yourself as somebody special, and people will follow you. Most important leadership lesson in the last 20 or 25 years I have learned is from a speech with NCO, a non-commissioned officers. By the way, in army, non-commissioned officers are like workers and commissioned officers like management cadre. He gives to the newly minted officers who pass out from Indian Military Academy. I'm not going to read out the whole chapter, but I will give you the key paras from those. No management book or no management institution has more distilled management principle or lesson, even close to this, be it from Harvard, Yale, Kellogg, ISB. Each word what I'm going to speak is a liquid gold. Listen to it carefully. Just imbibe it. You don't need to record it or write it. Just imbibe it. One of the paragraphs in that lesson is, what do we as your troops expect from you? As officers, as a commanders, or as a leader. He says, we expect from you an unassailable personal integrity and highest of morals. We expect you to maintain the highest state of personal appearance. We expect you to be fair, to be consistent, to have dignity but not aloofness, to have compassion and understanding, and to treat each soldier as an individual with their individual problems. And we expect you to have courage, the courage of your conviction, the courage to stand up and be counted, to defend your men when they have followed your orders, even when sometimes they were in error. To assume the blame when you are wrong. We expect you to stick out your chin and say that this man is not qualified and he will be promoted only over my dead body. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one piece of advice you must all take. Please, I repeat this again. We expect you to stick out your chin and say that this man is not qualified and he will not be promoted, or he'll be promoted over my dead body. No wrong promotions. Do not promote a wrong man just because he has a liability of maintaining his family or because he's having some responsibility. If you promote a wrong man, you are creating a liability for yourself, for your organizations, and for your successors. He goes on to say, we expect you to have courage in the face of danger. There will be opportunities where you may emerge as a hero. And what is this definition of a hero? A hero is an individual who is faced with an undesirable situation and uses means at his disposal to make that situation slightly more bearable. Your men, your subordinates do not expect always 5-star facilities. They want you to create a situation within which they can work even in undesirable situations. They go on to say, do not display recklessness and expose yourself or your men to unnecessary risk to reduce their normal chances of survival. In corporate words, don't ask your team to do something where there's a danger to their life, where there's a danger to their performance, where there's a danger to your achievements. Set the right targets. And if you do so, if you do not do so what I've said, they will lose faith in your judgment. Now this is what your men expect from you. And then he goes on to say, what can you expect from us as your subordinates? And this is again a piece of golden advice for the corporate world. From few of us, you can expect prove your attitude. And so happens in our business every day. Our subordinates want us to prove our attitude, to prove to them that what we are saying makes sense. From few of us who wanted to be an officer but could not become, you can expect a bit of resentment. You have that in your organization every day. The person who wanted to get promoted doesn't get promoted, there's a bit of resentment. From few of us who are old timers, you can expect tolerance. We see in our organizations, there are people who have no desire to be promoted, they are tolerant. But from most of us, you can expect loyalty to your position, devotion to our cause, not your cause, our cause, admiration to your honest efforts, courage to match your courage, guts to match your guts, endurance to match your endurance, motivation to match your motivation, and a desire for an achievement to match your desire for an achievement. We will not shiver in cold if you shiver with us. We will not mind the heat if you sweat with us. And when our cigarettes are gone, we will not mind quitting smoking if your cigarettes are gone. And then he says something which is the most beautiful line of prose I have ever read or heard. If mission requires, not if you require, not that you want to show to somebody who is back home and you want to prove yourself a hero. Not that you want to behave like a Chatak Charlie when somebody is visiting your company. If mission requires, we will storm the very gate of hell right behind you. Gentlemen, 3 things. First, it's a requirement of a common mission. Secondly, we are willing to do anything for that. And third, behind you, they're very clear who needs to lead. Our subordinates want us to lead by an example, and we have to do that. You are generally appointed CEOs or MDs or HODs in the organization. You are never appointed as a leader. Leadership is an intangible thing which you develop within yourself each and every day. The real character of a leader comes out in chaos. Day-to-day problems anybody can handle. It's only in the chaos that your core strength, your courage, your charisma, can-do attitude comes out. If time permits, I can speak for next 10 minutes. Otherwise, let me know if you want me to stop here. Can I continue?
Yes, sir. You can continue. Definitely, sir. We would like to hear more from you.
Thank you. So having discussed what makes a leader, it's important that people perceive you as a leader. I might have a very high imagination about myself. I might think I'm the best. But do your subject, do your subordinate, do your enemy, do your competitor perceive you, the leader? Let your subjects, your peers, your subordinates, even your competitors perceive you as the most important, most intelligent, most powerful, and most useful person. If you achieve that, ladies and gentlemen, you are the true leader. And let me give you again an example of this. You all know of Julius Caesar. When he was 23, he was kidnapped by pirates and they demanded 20 talents of silver as a ransom. Now, 1 talent of silver is around 31 kg. So that was equivalent to around $600,000. And Caesar laughed at them. He said, I can't be ransomed for such a small amount. He says, increase my ransom to 50 talents, which was equivalent to around $1.5 million. And his pirates were confused. This is the first time their captor is asking them to increase the ransom. But they were happy, okay, so be it. So Caesar let his men go to the Rome and spread a word around that Caesar is captured and the ransom is $1.5 million. Till then, nobody ever in the history of Rome was ransomed for such a high amount. So overnight, the Caesar became famous. Everyone thought he must be a very, very important person. He must be a credibly useful to the country, and that's why the pirates have valued him so much. Ladies and gentlemen, he invented the Veblen effect. Although Thorstein did not give that name to it for 2000 years. You know what's the Veblen effect? The Veblen effect is when the consumer perceive higher priced goods to be worth more simply because they cost more. So, perception in the minds of people is very, very important. And that's why you see all the great brands spend a lot of money on advertisements to create perception in the minds of people that yes, they are better than what they are. So Caesar had a factory to make him a Veblen brand. He placed a value on himself which was greater than anyone else in the Rome. And as far as everybody else knew, it was an independent valuer who put the valuation on him. So everybody thought it must be true. So his men did not find difficult to raise money. In fact, they could raise much more than 1.5 million. They came back and they got Caesar freed. Now, having become such a famous man, it was not difficult for him to raise a small army. So quickly, the next day or two, raised an army of very strong personals, went and killed those pirates, took back all the wealth and much more what he had. So gentlemen, in a matter of 2 days or 3 days, the Caesar became rich and famous. How could he do that? He knew how to get perception of people changed. And with that quality, he ruled the great Rome from Spain to Germany and from UK to Middle East. So the most important piece of real estate in which you should stake a claim is a human mind. And how do you stake a claim in human mind? By creating a perception. And how do you create a perception? By controlling the context. Therefore, control the context and you control the mind. And if you control the mind, you control the world. I'm not saying you do what Caesar did. Probably your circumstances will not allow you. But the way to succeed is way to create better perception in the mind of people. The way to succeed is not only being better than others, but find a track that is not visible to others. New subject, new methodology, better knowledge, most important, more sincerity and dedication. In last but not the least, never die attitude. Do this and success is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, once you become a leader, there is a duty cast on you. Leaders are supposed to create leaders better than themselves. Every occasion, every time in your life, whenever you achieve something, remember that you have achieved that on the shoulders of other leaders, well-wishers, your parents, your friends, your relatives, who have stood and allowed you to stand on their shoulders and achieve what you have achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of my presentation. Jai Hind. You can ask me any question, pertinent or not pertinent, but I would only request avoid personal questions.
Hello, Namaskar, Jimaji. It was really great hearing you. This is Bhavesh Tehel this side. I am the Executive Director for BNI Nagpur, and it was wonderful hearing you. In whatever you said, there were a couple of things that interested me a lot, right? So the first thing was, without any fear, give whatever you have to your employees and build your team very strong. So that is something is very interesting, and we all work on that philosophy of givers gain. So we give whatever we have, and then we expect. To all the participants, if you have any questions, please put them in Q&A bar, question and answer bar hoga. आप वहाँ पे सारे questions डालिए. We have one question there. We'll start with this, Chimaji, for now.
Bhavesh, I would request you if you can read out the questions because I can't see that.
Definitely. I'll do that for you. The first question comes from Yusuf Master. He's a senior member of BNI. He is asking, how can we identify opportunities, or what are the attributes to identify whether it is an opportunity or not? So it's a very interesting question. If you can answer that, Jimaji. Thank you.
Bhavesh, I think I answered that question in the first paragraph of my speech. You need to acquire knowledge and competence if you want to lead any business. And if you are qualified, if you are knowledgeable, you will be able to identify the opportunities, do its SWOT analysis, look at pros and cons, and your finance model, or if you can't do it, your CFO will do a finance model for you, will tell you where you are going. Do not just look at the immediate gain again. Look at what is the market going to be 5 years later? What is the market going to be 10 years later? Are we going to continue to have the tools what we have today? And if you do those analysis, you will be able to identify the opportunity yourself.
Yes, if we have any other questions, please add them to the Q&A bar. So until anybody puts question there, I would want to ask you, Jimaji, if you can suggest certain books, because I heard a lot of your speech and there were wonderful stories that were there. So would you suggest any book or any books for a leader to read which helps them grow?
Bhavesh, I personally am not a person who would subscribe to one individual book. I would say read the people, read the circumstances around you, look at the opportunities. The best tools of learning leadership skills is introspection and listening to what is the wind around you. Books, yes, everybody will narrate his own experience. Everybody has his own perception of the book. You have that The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. You have a book written by Manik Shah. You have a couple of books written by Captain Raghu Raman. But again, those are their stories. You have to create your own story if you want to be successful. We are not school students, we are not college students. We have a much bigger laboratory. Our field is much bigger. So keep learning from everyday activities. That's the best thing to go forward.
Great. So nicely mentioned that make your own stories and do things that it becomes. The wonderful story that you shared about Juliet and Caesar, the Caesar story. You called it Veblen effect. I would rather call it Caesar effect, and it should work that way. That was a great learning, Chimaji, from your end.
Thank you.
Yes, we have one more question here. This question comes from Rajiv Sen. Rajiv is one of the presidents of one of our chapters. What is that one big quality that a leader must have to establish his impact on team? Starts following them. So, what is that one impact that you will talk about that creates that attraction towards the team?
I think I've said in my last paragraph, you have to be best in what you're doing. There could be small things or big things. Whatever you do, put your head and soul into that, and the result will be your advertisements. Do not think anything is small or anything is big. If you have decided to do something, that means you have already considered that is an important, otherwise you wouldn't have done it. If you're doing that, put your head and soul into that, make sure that you do it better than anybody else, and you are the leader.
Great. Thank you, Chimaji, for this. Next question comes from Shilpa Dange. She is asking that how do we groom leaders for tomorrow?
Say it again, I haven't understood the question.
How do we groom leaders for tomorrow?
Very good questions. And I think all that I've said in my speech today was just that. Do not burden them with your philosophy. Do not kill their initiatives. If your children are not doing well in the school, do not worry. They will be good at something else. Allow them to develop their inner strengths. More often than not necessarily if you want your child to be a doctor, he'll be a good doctor. As I've said earlier, most of the times occupations choose you. You don't choose occupations. And automatically you will find the right occupation which suits your strength. Somebody will find right in the beginning of his career, somebody will make a couple of mistakes and then get there. But you will get there. Do not get bogged down by small hurdles in life.
Well said, Chimaji. We're waiting for one more question from Rajiv's end. He has written one more question in the Q&A. I think the question is already here. How to invoice team with the vision of leader? So how to channelize their vision to our vision is something that I think Rajiv wants to know.
Two things. One, make your vision everybody's vision. Unless your team share your vision, you can never call that as an organization vision. Two, have a communication which has no default. The problem with us is in every organization, the CEO says something else to his HOD, and by the time it reaches down the line, it's totally misinterpreted. Have impeccable vocabulary which is understood by you and everybody else in the team the same way. I gave you an example of I say again and repeat. So do that, and then do not take all the credits when things go right. It's your team who has done it. Give them their due. Appreciate, and your team will be with you.
Great. Thank you for answering this question. If we all are liking Chimaji's answer, please let's mention that in the chat box. Let's write whatever we feel in 1 or 2 words. That the answer was great, excellent, and all of that. That gives us a lot of motivation. Thank you, Chimaji. We are done with the Q&A, and before I would conclude the session, one more thing that I really liked from your session is make yourself someone people would like to follow. So that is something that I really picked up from it's one of my top learnings from today's session. Thank you for all the participants, BNI members and non-BNI members. I could see a lot of non-BNI people also here in the session. Congratulations and thank you for attending this amazing motivational speech today on leadership. Thank you, Chimaji. It was wonderful having you here. We would soon meet in person.
Thank you, everybody, for having the patience to listen to me. And thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for the Blanco head table for creating this wonderful event.
Thanks, Bhavesh, for your support.
Congratulations.
And thank you, sir, for a speech. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
क्या बोलते हो योगेश जी?
बस कोई है कि गए सब?
रिकॉर्डिंग बंद कीजिए।
1 मिनट। हाँ।